All right, we'll call to order the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission Joint Plan Development Workshop for Monday, September the 8th, 2025 at 4 o'clock p.m. Roll call certification of quorum. Madam Secretary will certify City Council has a quorum present with all members being present with the exception of Member Koza, who will be absent for the remainder of the evening. With that, Mr. Chairman, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We got a full house. Everybody's present, all 7 commissioners.
Yay. All right. Madam Secretary, did we have any citizens' comments to sign up? There was none. Katya, are you leading this workshop? So if you'll read into the record the reason for the workshop and start in with y'all's presentation.
Good evening, everyone. This is a request by Jennifer Curtis, Meta Planning and Design, LLC, applicant on behalf of Betty Ray Hairston, owner, for a plan development workshop as required by the Unified Development Code regarding a proposed development for a townhouse-style residential community consisting of 76 single-family lots on approximately 11.849 acres, generally located north of McCard Road, west of Old Alvin in Pearland. As required by the code, the joint workshop is the first step in the process prior to applying for a zone change to the PD. Additionally, we did receive one comment in support of this request, even though we do not send notification letters out for plan development workshops. The selected base zoning is Townhouse Residential District, and this location may seem familiar to some as the applicants had a workshop in July of 2024 for 101 single-family detached lots, and a formal submittal for a zoning case was submitted for a proposal with 96 single-family lots. However, the motion to approve the case failed at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today, the request is for 76 single-family detached lots with a portion using alley access, and proposed amenities include a community park, detention, and common open space. The subject site was annexed into the city in 1960, and the subject site has remained undeveloped and is currently not platted. Looking at the zoning and the land use, to the north is single-family homes. To the south, and zoned R2, to the south across McCard is zoned general commercial and is vacant. To the east is also zoned general commercial and has a daycare and a dance academy. And to the west is also zoned GC and has vacant land and self-storage detention. The future land use place types identify a split on this lot with traditional residential on the north and commercial center on the south. Here is the applicant's design plan and the lot summary, noting different dimensions as well as 76 lots with 16 guest parking spaces. And we can go back to this design plan later. Again, here's some renderings of the proposed single-family detached lots. An additional rendering to jog some memories. On the left side of the screen is the design plan from the July 2024 workshop, as well as the current design plan on the right side of the screen, as well as the formal petition in 2024. The left side has the design plan and the right side has today's request. The applicant is currently proposing 15 deviations with this plan development request. And the focused area on this slide is on area regulations, landscaping, setbacks, and common open space. And this slide focuses on landscaping and fencing. Staff does not have any objection regarding the area regulation. However, regarding setbacks, if reduced setbacks are supported, staff recommends increasing to 5 feet between each building instead of 3 feet as noted. Additionally, we're requesting further details related to common open space in the formal submittal, as well as landscaping, and staff is recommending stronger language be provided in the formal submittal, identifying an achievable and attainable planting goal for front yards in the home, as it is not supported to plant trees on split property lines. The applicant's packet identifies 100% masonry for all sides of the proposed homes. And again, we're requesting stronger language in the formal submittal. As a note, the streets within the proposed development are designated to be private streets built to city standards. And their parking is 1 guest parking space for every 5 units, with a total of 16 spaces, and staff is supportive of this guest parking. And again, here is the design plan, and that concludes staff's presentation. I'll pass it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Scott, are you going to present for the team? Sounds good. All right. Good to see both of you. Just for the record, give us your name for the record and go into your presentation.
Builders.
There it is. There it is.
Am I not close enough? I generally don't have a problem with the voice. So Scott Burr with Sullivan Brothers Builders, Kevin Stuckey, Julie Glass, also with Sullivan Brothers, and Ed Cummins. And we are collectively here to talk about this proposed development. I'll tell you guys, we're pretty excited about it. It's been a couple years since I've had the pleasure of addressing you all. Old Town is doing pretty well. We really like the look. Actually sold a house this weekend, which is always good. And obviously we're the third pony on this thing, right? But we took a different approach. I think Kevin has been amenable and open to some of our ideas. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. He's going to talk a little bit about the site location and the land plan, and then we'll talk about product here shortly, okay?
Thank you, Scott. Make sure I'm driving correctly here. The site outlined in red is on McCard, just to the west of Old Alvin Road. Want to point out that adjacent to the site, the east of the site, is the Learning Center Daycare and the Chara Dance Studio. Across Old Alvin Road is Fire Station number 1, and then catty-corner from the site across McCard is Cockrell Elementary. We think this is a logical place to do a transition development instead of going purely commercial. I included this slide to make a point. Everything in yellow is residential. You see the city's tract of land that is not developed. I don't know if it's intended to be developed, but largely we are in a location that is surrounded by residential. I will point out also that immediately to the west of us, above the storage facility, is a small sliver of land that, if it is to be developed, access is going to have to be attained through the storage facility, or that landowner is going to be required to build a bridge across the creek there. I think is going to be an expensive challenge. I did not have a chance to meet with the Highland Crossing HOA. I did talk to their board members. Garrett Berg sent us this letter. We just got this very, very recently, as of this afternoon. But they're in support still of a residential development rather than commercial development on the site. Site plan we showed earlier. Katya showed this earlier. You can see the triangle to the northwest corner. I'm not quite sure how that ever gets developed feasibly. We've done some changes from what you've seen previously. We took the size of the pond, the large pond, down and put 2 ponds along McCard Road with the ability to have a sight line from McCard to the houses that Sullivan will be building, to make it very much an amenity. Those ponds being wet ponds with fountains. Scott, you want to talk about?
All right, my turn now. So this site plan, the intent behind the site plan was to offer 2 different products, neither of which I think are currently offered for sale in the area. One is a rear entry product, which is what you see here. This is probably a touch more craftsman style than what we might put out there. We might make it a little bit more inland looking. These homes are being built actively on Galveston Island right now, so Love to take you guys down there. These homes were also built next to the ExxonMobil headquarters in Springwoods Village. We were one of two builders that were invited to that community. And in many ways, we modeled it after what we did in that community. And what that means is when you're driving down McCard or you're entering into the community, you should have a robust sense of arrival, much like what we did in Highland Glen. What was that, Julie? 25 years ago, probably now. Really nice front entrance, lots of landscaping, very, very open feel. When you're developing and building in smaller, I don't like to use the word high density because in our world, this isn't high density. It's high density relative to maybe where you all have been, but it's certainly not high density in the vernacular that you might see in a city of Houston. Regardless of what you want to classify it, you want to be very intent. We don't have a lot of intent about how you use space. And so by providing these open areas in the front, it will allow more sight lines into the community and it will not feel so blocked in, okay? So this core is going to have an alleyway down the middle and you're going to have rear entry product in a similar vein to what you see in Old Town, but it's a much more, it's a larger footprint, got a lot more massing on the front. It's going to feel bigger from the street. So that's what you're going to see in the middle. On the exterior, you're going to see a higher density look. And I'm saying the word higher density because that's the vernacular most used. A couple of comments about higher density. You can still have generous side setbacks. You can design homes, if you'll look at the way these homes are designed, particularly, is there a way for me to point on this? I guess not. On the bottom row, there's 6 houses. The 2 houses in the middle are the idea that we have, which is you want to put the front doors facing each other so that you have a general courtyard feel in the middle and you're not staring at garage doors, okay? So you minimize the garage door with a streetscape by utilizing landscaping and a variability along the side. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. We can talk about it some more. The other thing that you can do in these scenarios is to mix and match your type of material on the exterior, the colors, the color scheme, the roof pitches, all of those elements, they're architecturally appropriate. And it's kind of like our Old Town product, if you've seen it. We don't always use a 3050 window. Some of you guys may remember that when we talked about it. There's nothing wrong with a 3050 window. Every production builder in America uses a 3050 window. We don't, not on our front elevations, because it just doesn't technically fit the architectural standards and the architectural books. Nothing wrong with it, but I'd be willing to bet most people, if they looked at our houses, they'd go, well, it just looks right, even though they couldn't necessarily articulate it. There's a variety of variances that we would be seeking, and those variances are relevant in order to maintain a certain streetscape look so that there's some consistency. I would probably recommend to everyone, the first order of business, the first question is, do you like the look? This submittal is a departure from what you've seen earlier because it offers 2 different product lines, different type of product, and it's a little bit less dense. If you're open to the look and the design, then I think in many respects we can model what we did together last time in Old Town to come up with a good solid set of variances that meet what you guys are looking for and then meet the look of the community. We build these houses currently. We do not build those elevations. We just haven't found a place to put them yet. We build these houses currently and they look just like that. So again, I'll tell you the same thing I told you last time I was here. We're going to build it. It's going to look like that. May not be exact, but it's going to look awfully darn close to it. I'm confident we can deliver a good-looking community. I'm confident that community is going to deliver homes that you guys don't currently offer in the community. These are examples of fencing that we've proposed along McCard. Fencing, landscaping, those are all very, very important elements to the community. But before those answers or our opinions can be defined, we got to know if this is something that you guys are on board with. Because if it's not, then if that look and feel doesn't meet what you're looking for, then we don't need to take the next step. So the slide here addresses the middle market, which I think every place in America is struggling to find. Rates are high, land availability is by and large limited. In y'all's particular case, there tends to be a limited access to MUD utility districts. Insurances are quite a bit higher, particularly for attached townhomes. You guys are in a fairly high windstorm zone, which even further boosts your insurance expense. But we think that this product and this land plan accomplishes that missing middle market without going super high density, 4, 5, 6, 8 packs, still giving you some yard space. We think it's a product people would be interested in. I think that's it. Thanks for your time. What questions would you guys have?
Yeah. So we'll good time to get into some questions. And I think we've always talked about we need a unique product, and at the end of the day, we're going to have more and more requests for smaller, enclavish, type developments, because we've got a lot of 8 to 12 acre, sites throughout the city. And so we're going to have to find something that we can hit on that makes sense in the market, bringing all those elements, together. So it's going to be real good. As always, when we do these types of plan development workshops, we're looking for a couple of things, and that is, if it's going to be a no, we want that no to be as cheap as possible, so we can not belabor it and go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars creating a packet to find out that it was a no day one. So my request for everybody is, are we on the right track, yes or no? Granted, it comes down to the final PD. I understand that. But just making sure that we give good direction that way. If it's a no, it's a no. If it's a yes, let's keep that ball moving. And then we can certainly have some comments around, the different elements within about what we'd want to see. So I think that way we can get deeper into the weeds. If it's a yes, we can get deeper into the weeds about where we want to go with it. So with that, I'm going to start off with the members of P&Z first. So Mr. Chair, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. John, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I would say favorable to the proposal. Thank you for looking back at the last couple of attempts and trying to address. Obviously, you go in this to make some money. You got to make it work. The numbers work. But you've listened to some of the complaints and concerns, and you've tried to address those. I think what we see in a lot of these is we all think they're great, and then we go to the meetings and the neighbors show up. And I think we need to realize that some of these properties, the neighbors are never going to be supportive of, no matter what it is. And so I think we got to find something good that works for the city. I think from what I'm seeing, this is something that's positive. We have developers with a positive track record with the city, bringing a product that I think is superior than a lot of the smaller lot products we've seen in the past. And I think I would ask you to look at some staff's recommendations and see how you could work some of those in. But I would say this would be a positive addition to the city.
Sorry, couldn't get it on. Quick question. Well, one, the presentation was great. Thanks for coming back with new ideas. It looks a lot better. Just want to make sure those middle units, those are going to be the ones that have the rear entry. And do we have an idea of what that looks like? I'm a visual person, so I'm just, what does that look like?
Well, I tell you what, is there a way for me to get on to Google Earth on this thing? I can show you houses right now that exactly what it's going to look like. Is there anybody?
Josh, are we able to?
Heck, man, I can just hop on here, right?
Scott, if I remember, that's what we did for your old town site. We flew into the Heights and showed exactly what that product was going to be. It's funny.
Cedar Springs. Bear with me, I'm getting there. But in short, while I'm doing this, yes, the core block that you see up there, that's where the rear entries will be. So it's a little hard to see. There's an alleyway splitting those two, and they go back to back. And the intent behind that is I don't want to stare at garages when I enter the community. Like, there's a trade-off when you're doing these smaller communities between look and feel and density, right? And so what we try to accomplish is kind of a meet in the middle approach. All right, how do I?
Here's your alley.
Well,
So now
there,
it'll
but I'm
be
not there.
rear entry in here.
Right there. So how do I? Okay, perfect, right there. How do I zoom in on that? Okay, now I just need to. How do we pick that up? Okay. There we go. All right, so in Harper Woods, and this is way up north, you guys may recognize some of these plans. You have a similar concept where you have a core that's your bigger houses, that's your more beefier houses, particularly from the streetscape. On the exterior, you have your air quote higher density houses. So I'm going to try and attempt to show you what that might look like. So you'll see this is our construction. These houses right here, and Julie, you need to tell me if I'm wrong. I believe these were 30 by 100 foot lots. But again, the way you set them up, and you'll see if I can get to it, it feels a little bit more robust. You see how this quadrant over here, this setback is narrower, and this one is more generous. So these are nearly zero lot line houses, whereas what we're proposing in y'all's community is bigger setbacks. This necessarily wouldn't fit here. But it's about the design elements, right? So when you're talking about these tighter communities, a foot matters a lot. A foot here and a foot there. Now all of a sudden you have a nice landscaping buffer. Now all of a sudden it feels more open. I'd like to think we do a pretty good job of being true to that. It's the same thing on house design. 6 inches on a home design it matters a lot. Okay, but your question was actually, well, how does it look here? So this is an example of, this is a Finley. This is one of the plans we're proposing on building in y'all's community. And what you see is this core, which is the central rear entry, adjacent to the higher density. Does that make sense? And let me see if I can show you a few more. So here's another example. So corner lot, right? And so I don't think I can jump back and forth. Okay, so imagine, you can see my cursor. You got a corner lot here with a rear entry house and a higher, air quote, higher density front load. So that's what we have here, right? And so all these little elements, that's only a 5 foot side setback. But we put some trees up. Now, is it that big of a deal? No, but it looks better. We did a little upgraded fence. Does it matter that much? No, but it looks better. It's things like that, here's a good example. So this is a shared walkway. Well, now all of a sudden you don't have concrete everywhere, right? And these are very these are much higher density houses than what we're proposing on this plan. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. One other question. Are these units going to be for sale or for rent?
For sale.
Perfect.
I can't promise you somebody's not going to buy it and rent it out, but we're intending on selling the house.
That's what we wanted to hear. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
One thing to note on the lots that Scott was just showing you, those were 30-foot lots. The minimum lot here on the perimeter is 34, and the interior lots are 38.
A little more.
Also agree. Presentation's fantastic. This is the right. It's the right fit for this project, for this parcel, I should have said. Prior P&Z meeting, I know we had some opposition from some neighbors. We had some opposition from some of the businesses that came out. I understand you've met with some of the businesses. and the board, HOA board, not the HOA, but the board. So I've heard good things, went forward with that. So appreciate that. For me, the setbacks, I know that was brought up. I have zero concern, honestly, as long as it meets fire code or, y'all find a way to do it. I don't care if it's 3 feet, 5 feet, 12 feet. It just makes me no difference. I'd much rather you be putting AV on the ground than not. I really appreciate the design element. One thing you didn't touch on when you showed the Google Earth was the garage door articulation. When you see that garage set back 2 or 3 feet, it doesn't seem like it makes a difference when you look straight onto that house. But when you're driving down the street, you're not looking at garage doors that are usually flush with or maybe 6 or 8 inches off. Y'all have deep set that. And I think that's going to make a big difference. You won't drive down the street or look down the street and see all garage doors. And I know that's always been a concern of planners and sometimes council persons. So I appreciate that very much. I just wanted to make sure that was put on the record as well. As for the site itself, I find this to be, yet another, and I'm a broken record here, but I find this to be another infill type spot, parcel. It's been passed over. There's a neighborhood behind it. Another one. You pointed out all the residential there. I saw there's a triangle piece on Old Alvin that's also an infill spot. These infill spots, to me, demand creativity on both sides. We as I'm not part of the city, but as P&Z, the city, the applicant, that creativity and flexibility on all sides, I think, makes a project like this work. So I appreciate all the efforts y'all went through and the city's gone through as well to make that work. And yes, as mentioned, I think Mr. Stuckey mentioned this is a transition piece. It is a transition piece. If you're a neighbor there, you typically don't want a store with a what do you call it? The dumpster at 5 a.m. beeping when it goes in reverse or starts picking up a load, and then the loud noises. You want the quietness, and you don't want bright lights looking over your side. So I like everything about this. I appreciate that you did put in, lastly, the centrally located rear access. I know that's a loss of land, and you might have lost some of the some extra units in this layout compared to the one before. But you're right; it makes a grand entrance, and it's just exactly what y'all did to Lakes of Highland Glen. I didn't think about that until you said it. It just gives you a grand entrance, and now you're going to be looking over those, into a neighborhood that has the beauty of Old Town Site. So I couldn't be happier. And I have a son that wants to buy a house, but he's going to need a bargain.
We're for sale, or we're selling them right now.
It's not rentable. It's a sale product. Thank you.
Again, thank you for the presentation, and thanks for coming back going back to the drawing board and coming up with something that we can, I think, get behind. I had a couple of questions. The example you showed on Google Earth showed a fence at the alley. Is the alley only one way, or is it open at both ends?
So it depends on land plan. So in this particular case, it would be a 2-way alley, and it would be open on both ends. And in Harper Woods, we have some that are 2-way, some that are 1-way, some very similar to what we have at Old Town. It just kind of depends on layout, but in this particular case, it's open on both sides.
Okay, great. I do appreciate and like the fact that you've set back with the ponds up front, much like another development that's coming in or that we came in and saw where they're mirroring their friends right across the street and setting back and giving a little bit more land just to not have backyards right up against the right-of-way property or the right-of-way line. And then to echo what Henry said, absolutely, the back-end entrance kind of breaks up the monotony of what townhomes kind of can be, or smaller lot homes. again, using the word high density, you tend to pack those in, and if they're all the same looking, whether it be garage here, garage there, but breaking up and having a completely different lot layout breaks up that monotony that's caused by higher density. So I think it's, yeah, you've got something good here, and again, you're going to have more and more. Henry beat me to it. These more and more infills. So if we can be a little lenient on what we can say yes to and meet in the middle with developers, then I think we're going to get a product that fits here rather than a couple of a very small strip center that the neighborhoods around are just going to have a problem with.
I absolutely love the look of the townhomes and the product. I think they look very cute, and I'm a huge fan of having townhome development that is something someone can invest in. They can buy, they can become a homeowner, they can start their life here in Pearland, and that's extremely important, and I really appreciate you guys bringing that type of product to the city, because everyone keeps trying to bring townhomes that are rentable, and nobody wants that. And so I'm hugely in favor of this, and I think that the layout looks good, and it's more important to me that we get some more of these townhomes, because there's not any other product like this in Pearland, than it is, as long as it meets fire code, than it is to worry about all the other setbacks that the city's asking for. I'm more in favor of just trying to give our citizens more availability to these types of products. So I'd be in favor.
Thank you for your presentation. As I'm looking at your scope and your renditions, I think it would be very eye-pleasing. The attic or the access through an alleyway with the garage, I'm a proponent of in high-density communities, so I like that idea, where when you're on your front porch, you're seeing other front porches, you're being able to converse with neighbors. It just brings the home atmosphere into a townhome community, so I like that. Interesting, what setbacks are you looking for build line on, not necessarily on the front and the rear, but on the sides?
Well, I think, so some of this, I'm hearing positive comments, right? So I think it's incumbent upon us to come back with a very detailed idea. But I think it's worth exploring doing a 3 or 4 foot setback on one side and then a minimum of 10 to 12 on the other. And so it goes back to enhancing and broadening the front door and the front porch. So what happens on these higher density communities is the front door and the garage are your problem children. So option one is remove the garage. Well, that doesn't really work in Texas. So then what you try to do is you go, well, how can I make it more appealing? And so what we've had some success doing is pushing the garage. Now look, we're only talking about a 24-foot wide front door, right? So it's all relative. But if you can push those to the side and you utilize a lot of landscaping and you make the entry more robust because it's more open, it accomplishes two things. Number one, it looks better. And then number two, it minimizes your garage inherently. So I think what I would tell you is it would be our intent to have 10 feet or more likely at the front doors. And worst case scenario, if we got if you guys are opposed to going down to 3 feet on the side, I think we can work with it. I think what I might submit to you is, can we throw a couple of ideas out at you, and let's collectively come up with what we think looks good. I think you might be surprised what it could look like if you've never seen it. But I mean, we won't go lower than 3. I don't want to do that. And firewalls, and it's a big pain to build. Yeah, we're not talking about zeros, but I do think that traditional stuff like this, you'd be 5 and 5 setbacks. I think you could do some really creative stuff if you went 3 and 7. And again, it's 1 or 2 feet matter, because all of a sudden you got 1 or 2 feet on this side. Now you got 1 or 2 feet on this side. And, I know you guys said you want trees. Like I understand you want trees. I don't know how many people think it's good to have a oak tree next to a slab, right? So So I think it would be prudent on our part as the home builder to make sure that we're giving something to the client that's going to last. So then maybe you go, all right, well, instead of an oak tree, we're going to go a crepe myrtle or a dwarf magnolia or something. That, you know, I think we can come up with a couple ideas for you. But I don't know if that answers your question or if I was a little gray there. But I think we're not going to go any closer than 3. You know, if we need to do 5 and 5, that's fine. But I think we would like to, or I would like to, come up with a couple of ideas and show you guys and see if you could get on board with it. I think it looks really good. Once you see it, it looks really awesome.
I'm in favor of the project, so not much convincing on my part. I like the look, and in fact, I'm familiar with a area in the hill country. They went 18-inch and 20 feet.
Whoa.
And the 20-foot, what it did is it gives you more room, especially if you have kids, to have playscapes and this type of thing on the 20-foot side. And on the 18-inch side, you can put your water heater, tankless water heater, and your electric and your gas on the 18-inch
Right.
side. So I'm in favor. I don't believe our city would let a 18-inch go, but the 3-foot would. But I would increase
Okay.
the other side and let your square footage on the inside be more limited. For small families is what I would do.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
One more quick follow-up, sorry. So obviously we don't have the 20 or so feet between homes, and that's where guests park on the street. So are we, as staff, are we limiting, was that one of the, how are we handling parking other than the 2 in the driveway? Oh, okay, there were, I didn't see.
It's a bit challenging to see, but what we're proposing is putting guest parking kind of strategically at the ends and on the side. That's parallel parking. So you don't want it monotonous, right? But I don't know if you've seen Old Town in a while, but parking in the street's a pretty popular thing,
Right.
which is good. That's what it's intended to do. So every house will have a 2-car garage, and then we'll have additional guest parking. And look, again, I think it's important to remember, if you're buying a home like this, no different than if you're buying a home in Old Town, like, you know what you're buying.
Right.
Like, you're not expecting a 25-foot driveway, because that's not what you see, right? But we will have full 2-car garage in all aspects, plus 16 additional guest parking spots.
And then the other question, so you're talking about widening the space between 2 front doors, essentially, right? But then, and having two elevations with the front doors together, so that would also mean that you would have 2 garages next to each other.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
One leads to the other, right?
That's exactly correct.
So you're flipping that. So every 2 homes,
That's
you
exactly
get a nice
correct.
wide open space for walking into the door.
Right.
So
And then
every
the other
2 homes
side,
have a park.
kind of gets a little closer. And I think we need to do some drawings for you guys to go look, and we can maybe go take some pictures for you.
But it's also 2 walls staring at each other, not a front door.
That's
front door and a
correct.
front
Yeah.
door.
So traditionally, when you do something like that, you end up putting like bull rock or black star granite between the houses, and you kind of turn your eye away from it, and you really make the front entry more robust to try to pull your eye there. It's kind of like every house has ACs, every house has tank. I mean, houses have ugly parts. They just do. And so the goal as a builder is to try to minimize the ugly part and maximize the part that looks good. And it gets a little more challenging on the higher density stuff, but we've done it a time or two, so I feel like we have a pretty good handle on how to make that look the right way.
Yeah, again, back to Henry's point, made it, dang it. But yeah, the more and more you get to these infills, the more and more you got to get creative to make it look good. And I think y'all hit the mark here with a few little tweaking. I think it's what's going to go here.
Appreciate it.
And I'm not going to repeat everything they said. I agree with every positive thing they said on this. The only thing I'm going to ask is underground utilities. Are y'all going to be underground in this one?
Well, if you can get CenterPoint by the neck, I sure would appreciate it. I think that's the goal, but I don't want to speak too far out of hand. So part of the challenge with these communities is CenterPoint. I would tell you I very much want underground utilities. That would be the goal, and we're going to have to get back to you on it. I know Kevin's made some phone calls. They're just they're a partner. We got to work with them.
All right, I understand.
I hear you loud and clear. I think I would agree with you. We just got to make sure it's going to meet their standards.
That's 47 years into dealing with them, so I know.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think y'all always surprise me. I mean, even though these are a lot like the ones that are in town site and Old Town Site, but y'all come up with fresh ideas on the townhomes. I like the way that y'all really look at this and try to make it a community that the neighbors will accept. And I've been a big fan of y'all ever since Old Town Site. But I think y'all do a great job. And Mr. Ken, there's no lipstick needed on this. So, all righty, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, guys. Great input, great comments. We'll open up to council for same thing. We'll start. Mr. Carbone.
Yeah, it's a good product, the right product for this location. I'm excited to see y'all with it and look forward to the next steps.
Deal. Ms. Chavaria.
Thank you, Mayor. So great project. I like the design. I'm in favor, but I'm on board with underground utilities. I would like to see that happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood.
Deal. Byron.
I have a few comments. One question I had when we had this is for staff, sorry. We had previous presentations from this. I believe that there was always a connection to that neighborhood to the north. They don't have that on there. Are we going to be okay with that? I don't want that to be a curveball for them. I know the neighborhood doesn't want to connect to them. That's what they've come and given us. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, there it is.
yeah. So previously that was there. Now it's not. I prefer it not be there. I know the neighborhood prefers it not be there. I just want to make sure it's not a curveball for them.
After listening to neighborhood feedback and this design not including it, I think we're accepting of not including that cut through with to the neighborhood to the north.
Okay, great. Thank you. Scott, you made the comment that these elevations look kind of craftsman-y and maybe I wouldn't go that direction. I'll tell you, from my opinion, I like it. It's a unique product for our community, and so I like the craftsman look to it. So you want to get creative, you guys are creative. I wouldn't get too creative because you really have a good product here. The only feedback that I would give you as far as the elevations go, from my opinion, is the Beaufort, I think. Is that how you say it?
The Beaufort.
Beaufort. That's the only roof line I don't like.
Yeah, you don't like it because it's too shallow.
Well, you had in the neighborhood you flew us through, you had an elevation very similar. It has a dormer on it.
Yes.
Thought it just gave a little more character.
Okay,
That's
understood.
all. But
Well, we got a double galley. That looks pretty, right?
well,
I like the double porch.
it does. It doesn't take away from the balcony. It's just it's the only turned gable in the whole thing.
Understood.
That's
I hear you loud
that's
and
just
clear.
me being
We're now arguing over dormers.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. We're not very far in the process, and we're being picky.
That's all right. I'm with you.
No, that's there.
Understand.
I like what you said about having some creative elements to the exteriors to make the elevations a little more interesting as you go through. So I really like that idea. Price point wise, you're figuring probably something similar to Old Town Site?
Probably. You know, I think the single family detached rear entry is probably going to trend a little higher. They're bigger houses. You're probably going to be looking, low to mid fours across the board. And then on the smaller product, the front entry, we really like to be in the threes. This is, I think it's important. Like we like Old Town. It's been a great project for us. I think Old Town's its own unique place, and I don't want to water it down. And I think that that's why we didn't bring that product. I mean, it's got some elements to it, don't get me wrong, but the rear entries are much larger than what we offered Old Town. The 2 stories are a substantial departure from what we offered Old Town. So I think we'll have elements to it because we're architectural geeks. But those rear entries, we really need to hit a price point. Interest rates are a challenge. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. We have a lot of folks like school teachers. We have a lot of young couples that have expressed a lot of interest in Old Town, and the price point's elevated. So I think with this product, we should be able to hit a little bit lower, so call it in the threes, more consistently in the threes. I don't know how low we can get. It's just a tough putt. But the bigger stuff will be in the low to mid fours.
Okay. On the setbacks you talked about, I'll just tell you the same thing I told the previous presentation. The only thing that worries me on the narrow setbacks is over time, we all see our lots build up and build up and build up just naturally over the years.
Silting.
And then you end up with drainage problems.
Yeah.
When you have very little distance between there, you have a little bit to work with. But you mentioned the crushed granite or something like that. That could help with that.
Typically, if we go that narrow and we do that concept I was talking about, we'll do like a Black Star or a Bull Rock. But that is 100% an issue. I mean, it's what we deal with on the warranty side, no doubt. I'd like to think we've gotten pretty good about managing that, but you're spot on. I mean, it's the tighter you get, a little more challenging it is to get slope.
Right. And then the last comment that I have, I love the product. I was just telling the mayor, I think a product like this with making it fit, we could take some lessons from this proposal for our UDC rewrite and how we can be a little more creative with this infill product. So we could maybe take some notes from this proposal to say, we're in the midst of this right now, so how can we incorporate that? So thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Kate?
Hi, I just wanted to say I do love it. I'm not going to repeat everybody else, but it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Gentlemen, great presentation. I think your product speaks volumes at the Old Town site. The only comment that I have is when it rains heavily at Old Town site in the alley, water collects. I've seen that in numerous occasions. I don't know what y'all will do differently. I know that land and properties may be a little different, but I do know that the water ponds, right there in that alleyway. And so that's the only thing. Other than that, I think this is perfect for this area. I like the fact that the businesses in the area are for it. Another comment, I know that y'all haven't spoken to the residents to that neighborhood to the north, but there's 18 homes that it affects, positive came from the association president, but, I'm a little just curious, but overall, I think this is perfect for this area. Thank y'all.
If I could, if it's all right. So I completely agree with you on the neighbors. I think we'll be as proactive as we can. I don't want to interrupt their daily lives, but we face similar questions when we did Old Town, and I think we tried to be as proactive as we could, and we would continue to do so. On the alleyway comment, the difference between this site and Old Town is this is virgin soil, so getting slope is going to be quite a bit easier for the engineers than it was on Old Town. We were dealing with quite a few immovable objects, so to speak. So. But nonetheless, it's on our list. We're aware of it, and we're trying to work through it.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Bill?
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think I echo everybody else's sentiment. I think the project is good. I think the site plan is great. A couple of things, just out of curiosity. What do you plan? Are you going to build a masonry wall on that residential side, the north side of yours? Are you guys going to build an 8-foot masonry wall, or what's your plan on that?
You talking about?
Along the residence where the homes are already there. Yep, right there.
Wasn't planning on it. I was just going to do a traditional fence.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess because we've had them come in here and people say, oh, we want it to be commercial, which I know is probably not realistically true. I think, my biggest fear is tides can change very quickly if a bunch of residents fill up this. So I think I agree with Councilmember Fernandez that, hey, it may be worth your time just to kind of let them know what you guys are planning on doing. I think the product is good, but that's one thing. And then some of the, I guess, part of the changes you want regarding, I guess you guys said 100% masonry. In my mind, masonry would be brick, but I know nowadays they define masonry as hardy plank. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's
what you guys are probably going to use. And I don't know what your thought process is. I know the cost kind of may go up with using brick, but if you guys have any kind of brick element to your development, I would love to see that rendering, if you guys are going to do some rendering at all.
Sure. I don't. Am I controlling, or can somebody hop over to the two products? Whoever's controlling. Is that me now? All right. Let's see if I can figure this out. No. All right. Well, bear with me. So this product it is designed not to have brick. Okay, it is a Craftsman design. It's more of a coastal Craftsman. We'll pull the coastal off. That product's not designed to have brick, and I would probably tell you that I'm not going to put brick on that product. If you want brick, we'll go back to the drawing board. This product, however, does bring in brick on certain elevations. So, and Julie, you need to make sure I don't misspeak here, but I believe every one of these plans has 3 elevations: a good, better, best. And best is not always brick, because 20 years ago, everybody in Houston wanted brick. It is changing over time just because of the availability, labor costs, et cetera. But we are introducing brick on those products because we felt like 2 reasons. One, it needed to be differentiated from our traditional Craftsman look. And then number 2, we needed to offer a brick elevation as an option. So what you'll typically see, I don't know if I can zoom in here, but let me see here. So what we may do, and I'm looking at something that isn't perfect, but what you'll see is like this right here. Can you see this? It's
Yes, sir.
A1, R1. This front gable is brick, and then it's accented with a hardy on the side. And so what we've tried to do on these particular plans is to offer more variation than what you may see on this. That make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I hear you loud and clear. We will have a little bit of brick, like that. Didn't speak very well there, but we'll have a little bit of brick. We'd like to think it is well thought out additions to brick, but it's not going to be 100% brick because it still has to work with this design.
Absolutely. And just for my curiosity, I'm not a home developer, but I'm assuming this is going to have an association attached to these
Yes, sir.
homes, correct?
That's the intent.
So I'm assuming that short-term rental will not be allowed in these places for somebody. I know you had earlier said that, hey, you can't stop somebody from renting, which is true, but like for it not to be rented less than 30 days or something like that, certainly we don't want that happening in this neighborhood. How would you guys put it in your association?
Julie, I'm going to need your help, but our minimum typical is 1 year in our Yeah, so in all of our communities, and Galveston's a great example. We have this product in Galveston. It's a really nice community. If you get a chance to go down there, I would recommend everybody go down there. We do not allow short-term rentals. And to my knowledge, Julie, since you and I have been there, we've put it in the HOA docs where we did not allow short-term rentals, and the minimum rental period is 1 year.
Okay.
So I can't stop somebody from renting it out to a family 2-3 years, 1 year, but we're not going to allow a 2-week Airbnb if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
We have zero problem committing to you that we'll put it in HOA docs.
Okay. And then last thing I would say, I would echo what previous council members said about underground. I would prefer it to be underground, and I know it's difficult with Centerpoint, but that would be a bonus. Thank you so much.
Sir.
All right, a couple things. So Vance with Centerpoint, they have a requirement, but yet we control our codes, correct? Okay. So they like as big an easement as they can get by with. They like, if it's split between 2 yards, they want 8 and 8, so it's 16. It's 8 on one side, 8 on the other. They can get their stuff done in 8 feet, but yet if there's nothing behind you, they now want 16 feet. So can we send a message that we want to change our UDC to an 8-foot minimum? And it has to be underground, and it has to be, joint trench, those types of things, and have them come in and because we're going to have this exact scenario over and over and over and over again. And I think it's in our best interest to get out in front of all of that in no better time than with the development sitting in front of us. Because Old Town side, I know they did the aerial down the alleys. Would have looked a lot better if we could have just gone under.
They came back and dug up the alleys multiple times. That didn't help.
Excuse me, Mayor Cole, if I could weigh in on that. When it comes to Centerpoint and undergrounding anyways, you got to keep in mind that their tariffs are based upon those not being placed underground. So that means somebody's going to have to pay the difference.
Well, and so if you go to any of our regular neighborhoods, brand new neighborhood, they go underground on the back of the lots. That's normal.
Yes.
Their tariff is not interrupted there.
Right.
Where they try to get around with the easement is now we just want to go aerial, and they'll do a 5-foot easement.
Correct. And it also depends on whether or not they're transmission lines or, you know.
Yeah. Well, and so you wouldn't have transmission lines inside of here. We're talking about interior, development. And I think we should send a message to them that we want to, you can get your stuff done in an 8-foot easement. You can do it underground, and you can do a joint trench. And I'd rather have some direction and be a part of that conversation than we just send developers off with what we think is going to happen. Next thing we know, we've got a war going on between developers and CenterPoint, and we're out of that, but yet we would rather see a tighter easement. Again, we're going to have this conversation over and over and over again over the coming years. So I'd rather get out in front of it and solve it. Secondly, I want to ask the question, in your initial write-up, you talked about some of the solutions to be able to do this is to do a PID versus a MUD. If we don't have available places to go and do the MUD, then a PID would be something to offer up. Is that the plan here, to come back ultimately with a request to do a PID?
I think it is at this point, based on what we know. What we didn't want to do was to cloud the conversation of, do you even like the product, without getting that far down the road. But one of the challenges that we're currently facing is everybody else has a reimbursement agreement, and we have kind of one, but MUDs are a little more broad. So yeah, I think it would be our intent right now, based on what we know, to come back.
Yeah, so that's good, and I recognize that. But with 7 over there liking the product and the deal, and 6 up here so far, I think it's safe to say.
I think we need to probably get moving.
You've got something to come back, so I want to lay that groundwork. Obviously, PIDs are similar to a MUD, just a little bit different structure. The PID boards are at the city; they're not, up at the attorney's offices or anything like that. It does allow for the reimbursements, which then keeps your lot cost down, so you can bring in a price point that makes sense for the community. So, enough about that. But that would be something that I would see different to the PID that we have approved out off of Smith Ranch Road. These guys would control 100% of the land, so it wouldn't be a 60-40, 70-30. It'd be 100% of the landowner coming in and wanting to participate in the PID. So that'd be a little bit different there. I do like the product. In fact, I like the Craftsman look. I've often said if we could resurrect Sears and Roebuck and bring that look back, front porch feel, everything else, I think it'd be a home run, especially if you could get the price point down. Unfortunately, manufactured housing today is no cheaper than site built right now. So, and I think you guys do a lot of that in your other side of the house. So, but I think it's worthy of a project to move forward. Echo what Mayor Pro Tem said. It'd be nice to come up with, when we get to a PD, and assuming we get all the way to the end, and we've got those elements in here from setbacks to everything else, that can be a basis for single-family compact housing, compact development, and wouldn't necessarily have a base zoning of townhome, but it would be a base zoning of compact development, and we would have that to work with. So now all of a sudden, we don't have all these variances coming up front. We've got a basis point to make sense, and you might end up with 1 or 2 variances, but you don't have the however many that was listed here. So I think that would be a great place to go as well. So with that, like I said, I like the product. I like the feel. Obviously, the concern with the neighbors next door is always important, and the more we can explain to them really the difference between what this could be versus what it could be under the current zoning is really big. Nobody necessarily wants the neighbor behind them. The only way you can guarantee that is to own the land. And I don't see any of them stepping up to the landowner and trying to buy it. So we gotta we gotta work what's best. With that, did you have a wrap up?
And can I ask you a question? The two detention ponds or wet ponds you have in the front, I know this is, I'm not trying to add more cost to you, but if you're gonna, I guess, target the young family, is there any way you can bury the underground detention and make it a park? Because you have a substantial amount of homes and there's not really, the yards are small, but there's no really playground, right? And all these new neighborhoods have them. If there's any chance you guys can, even one of them, the smaller lot, if you can bury it underground. I know I've seen underground detention ponds, and I don't know if that's a cost feasible or not, but that would be great.
Yes, there is underground detention. We have looked extensively at it. I would tell you that we are watching intently to see how well that maintenance process works with underground detention. Sure would like to know how they clean that silt out in 15 to 20 years. But somebody's figured it out. We'll look at it. Yeah, my word, we'll look at it. It is pricey relative to traditional detention. I think if I was to, off the cuff, but this is me without really looking at the numbers, I don't know that I want to remove the two front entry ponds. I think it's a look that we may not have we may not have a big pool and we may not have a big park, but I think it's going to look pretty good. We can look at it on the larger pond and see if that becomes some type of green space. We'll see if the numbers make sense out of it. I get a little bit hesitant. I just like to see it perform long term. I'd see it perform long term when Harvey hits. You know what I mean? Because I just don't know enough about it. But we'll look at it.
Okay.
Good deal. Final wrap up, staff. Do you have anything? All right.
I'll go. Sorry, you open the window, so I'm going to take it. I would like to just add a few comments. Please have a driveway that a vehicle can fit in 100% without blocking a sidewalk. Will there be a sidewalk all the way around?
Well, number one, probably not, because I don't know that I want a sidewalk all the way around. I think it takes away from the look in some cases. Secondly, we weren't going to have a driveway that accomplished, it's a 20-plus foot driveway.
Yeah.
We weren't going to have that. We are planning on having a full, where you can pull into the garage. The land plan and the way it lays out, it's a little challenging to get a full full car length driveway and accommodate the house.
Oh yeah, no, not a full 2-car length, but just to say we've seen a variety of products lately, and I drove some stuff yesterday where not even one vehicle could fit in a driveway.
Oh yeah,
and so that's saying that for the record.
Okay.
And I would also like to agree with Member Patel's comments about the green space and the amenity area. If it is going to be just the primary pond, would certainly encourage y'all to invest in that area with the trail, and then that's also where your hardwoods could go. And then I just wanted to open it up and kind of touched on it for a moment. When it comes to clarifying the PD document, when it comes to the masonry, it would be great for staff to have some consensus on we're okay with stucco counting. I think you've all heard conversations go back and forth on that. And just when it comes to staff, getting 80% of the facade needs to be brick or stone versus whatever. But I would kind of open that up if there's any clarity to be given, or Katja, Martin, if y'all have questions particularly.
Okay. Planning and zoning, any final wrap up, Mr. Chair? Anybody got anything?
One more. I'm sorry. You said the ponds were all wet?
The front two are intended to be wet. The back one's not.
The front two. So you could potentially put some fields of some kind and keep a higher level of maintenance in the back pond to provide some kind of amenities.
Potentially, absolutely.
Potentially.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something we need to look at. We're certainly sensitive to needing space.
But it's only the front two that are wet, giving you the fountain.
That's
and
the
nice
intent right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And it could easily be a outdoor play area of some kind.
Yeah, just something rather than nothing.
One more comment, Scott. You just said that the front two are going to be wet, but the back one's not going to be wet. But it says wet bottom.
Well, then I didn't catch it.
Okay.
I don't want that to be wet. I mean, part of the challenge you have with some of these communities like this is HOA costs can get out of control pretty fast. So I just missed that. That's on me. It's an expense to have it, and the front two, I think, lend to the look and the feel, but I think it would be much more prudent to evaluate other detention alternatives that was brought up earlier to see what we can do with that cost than having a pond or a fountain or something back there. So that's just an airball on my part.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap up this particular workshop and move on to B. Guys, thank you for being here. Good presentation. I think you got some good feedback. Looking forward to next steps there.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. With that, Katya, are you going to handle this one as well?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. All right. This is a request by Alan Mueller, applicant on behalf of TFM 529 Ventures LLC, owner for a plan development workshop as required by the Unified Development Code regarding a proposed development consisting of up to 315 multiple family units on approximately 8.72 acres, generally located south of Broadway Street, east of Oak Road. As required by the Unified Development Code, a joint workshop is the first step in the process prior to applying for a zone change for the PD. The selected base zoning is multiple family district, and the remaining 4.72 acres of the general business zoning is not to be changed with this PD proposal, which actually totals the acreage to 13 acres. But with the 8 acres of multifamily, they are proposing up to 315 units for 1 and 2 bedroom units only, and proposed amenities will include a pool, a dog park, covered parking, detention, and common open space. This property was annexed into the city in 1995 and 1999, and the property is currently not platted and is undeveloped. And I would like to mention, we do not send public hearing notices to adjacent property owners. However, we did receive 1 comment in favor of the request. Looking at zoning, to the north is vacant land and under construction for a GB parcel. To the south is multiple family district, MF. It's the Lakeside Point Apartments and Townhomes. To the east is our neighborhood service district, and MF. It's vacant land and the Reserve at Tranquility Lake Apartments. And to the west is also zoned GB with vacant land. The future land use map has this property with a split of commercial center and compact residential. And here is the proposed split with the multiple family district and general business district, splitting the 13 acres up with 4.5 acres for the GB tract and 8.72 acres for the MF tract. And on the right side of the screen, the applicant is referencing a 2020 plan for the Broadway Street Corridor Development Plan that we can address later if there's questions. Here is the applicant's proposed design plan. You can see the detention, 2 buildings, pool courtyard, and another courtyard, parking, covered parking with this image on the south side of the image, and in the central area, and 2 access points. Here is a proposed rendering of the multiple family apartment complex. Here are some inspirational photos provided by the applicant. Amenity inspiration photos. And the breakdown of the number of units and size of units. Again, there will be no 3-bedroom units in this proposal. Looking at the proposed deviations, with this request right now, there were 8 deviations that were requested. With conversations that staff has been having with the applicant, there will likely be additional stipulations and deviations included in their formal submittal. The focus on these 4 are on lot coverage, density, height, and common open space. And this slide also focuses on common open space, parking, and signage. Staff is supportive of the density proposal as well as parking, and requesting further information be provided in their common open space plan. Additionally, potentially working with staff to decrease the number of surface parking to increase the amount of landscaping could be a discussion with the applicant and staff. Additionally, staff is also supportive of the area regulation and the height increase. And as previously stated, The applicant is proposing 8 deviations with this request. However, with discussions we've been having with the applicant, there may be more. Some of the conversations have been about the architecture of the building. They're going to propose a mixture of masonry, hardy siding, and hardy panel. Balconies were discussed. They are potentially going to provide private yards in the first floor and 30 balcony units on each subsequent floor. Dry detention is proposed with a 4-foot granite walking trail. And we also talked about fencing, proposing an 8-foot tall wrought iron fence on 3 sides, and the dog park will have a 4-foot ornamental fence, as well as parking and landscaping. No parking space will be greater than 100 feet away from a parking lot island tree. And we also briefly talked about the GB tract, potentially adding a stipulation that 5,000 square feet of commercial will be developed in the GB tract at a minimum. Here is the design plan and the proposed rendering, and that concludes staff presentation. Hand it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I see Alan moving to the mic. Good to see you tonight, Alan. Just for the record, state your name and look forward to your presentation. Yep.
And I have it as well. If you, yeah, you just let me know next slide whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, then this is it then, right?
Yep.
Very good. Go ahead and hit the next slide then, if you would. Again, Alan Mueller. Thank you all for being here again. We're with me this evening is Dr. Modametti, Nick Modametti, and David Adame with Alliance Residential. So we're going to do a little bit of a tag team as we go through here. So I'm going to start off, talk a little bit about the where of the project, and then Nick and David are going to kind of run through the who, what, and why as we see it as we go forward. So go ahead, please. So the where is at kind of the middle portion of Broadway between Manville Road and Cullen on the south side. So it's going to be the southwest corner of Broadway and Oak Drive. As mentioned, it's about 13.3 acres, and it has a pipeline running east and west that splits it into the about 4.5 and about 8.5 acre tracts. And I think, as a lot of you know, this has kind of been the middle part of town that's kind of been passed over. And so when you look at the comprehensive plan, it called this out as a catalyst site for the Broadway and Cullen area. As was mentioned, it was GB and some compact residential. But if you look also at the PEDC plan, takes a little deeper dive. It calls this the Avalon Terrace target area and calls out some other specific requirements. One other thing I wanted to mention specifically about this site, it is over 800 feet to the nearest residential tract, which is the Westchester Circle to the east, and then it's even further to Avalon Terrace to the north. But next slide to talk a little bit about the Broadway corridor plan from the PEDC. I know you can't read this, but this is squarely in the middle of what was called out as the Avalon Terrace target area in that plan, and I think it was specifically because, again, this area has kind of been passed over in development, but it does specifically call out things like urban footprint residential, which we've tried to accomplish with this use, integrated that with some connectivity into a commercial center that would be in the front of the property. So looking at this plan, we really felt like we were trying to hit the target right on, and hopefully can be that catalyst that this area of town would need. Next, please. So we're going to flip here. So the who, as you know, the Modametti family is a good business partner with the city. Nick is going to take over from here, and then David will come up to tell you a little bit more about Alliance Residential and the specifics of the project.
Go next slide. Yes, Nick Modametti, thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a few moments just to walk through the history of the track. So prior to us purchasing the property, it had been marketed for about 15 years for general business uses. And as you can see, the site is about 1,300 feet deep and only 440 feet wide. And anyone in the development business will tell you that that is not a shape that is conducive to commercial development for the entire track. And as Alan pointed out, there is that pipeline that runs through it. So really, a singular use is very challenging here. I think the city has picked up on that as well, which is why the comp plan calls now for commercial on the front and housing on the rear, which is what we're proposing to do tonight. We think multifamily works best here. We're surrounded by multifamily on this west side as well as the south side. So really the character of the area is already multifamily. We're not making a change to that. And the other thing we got to keep in mind is if we were here tonight asking for single family housing, the concern we would have as a developer of that product, anyone who goes there to live or rent would be worried about the existing multifamily looking over into their homes, right? So it's a very challenging site for single family. Really the best use for housing here is multifamily. In regards to the history, when we picked up the property, there were several heirs who had ownership. So we spent an extensive amount of time to put together the ownership into one fee interest. They were looking at partitioning off the property into individual pieces. And I think had that happened, we would not be here tonight. And I think an inferior product would be developed here as well. And the last thing on the history is, as the city is aware, Oak Road is a private roadway. The Asian town across the street had a hard time getting access there. We have been fortunate enough to have convinced our neighbor to the west to grant us an access easement into Oak. So we do have access for the fire code to allow for those 2 points of entry and exit. And I'm going to turn it over to David, but real quick before I do so, we've been on the market for a couple of months now, and along the way, we've had many offers for garden-style apartments. And I have listened closely to the mayor, to council, to Vance, Martin, all the staff, and I know the city does not want garden-style apartments. And the reason we chose Alliance, and that's why they're here tonight, is because they are proposing an urban product similar to what we're doing on Smith Ranch, and something I think and I hope you'll see tonight that is, meeting the character of what the city is looking for multifamily. I'll give it to David now.
Thank you, Nick. So, David Adami with Alliance Residential, leading the multifamily development efforts for our Houston office. Thank you for having me. Appreciate your time. I wanted to give you a little bit of background. You can go to the next slide as well. Alliance in our now 19 offices across the country, we're still privately held and take a lot of pride in our individual offices, specifically Houston here, where was one of the very first offices in our history. We've built out really a lot of the concepts for our brand nationally out of Houston. And part of the product type in which we will talk about today and what you see in the proposed plan is what Alliance Houston has come up with and has built and has been very successful across the whole Houston area, suburban and infill environments. And you can go to the next slide. And here are some of the concepts for some of the 3-story product, and we'll look at some of the 4-story well. But just to give you an idea of some of the communities that we've built in across Houston and the quality in which we build, we do have in-house asset management, in-house construction. So our construction team, we are all aligned for not only the construction and ownership from the start, but also long-term sustainable, the durability of the product as well is frankly unmatched in my opinion, and as well as why we're able to do so much by way of our relationships and our track record with landowners, with equity investors, with eventual buyers of our properties that own and maintain these for the long term. Next slide, please. This just gives a little bit of idea as well as the internal quality, not maybe as much as the focus here tonight, but just to give an idea of what we will be providing by way of top of the line, not only exterior finishes and amenities, but also interior. Here's a little bit of an idea of, again, the community amenities. What's really important to us at Alliance is creating a place to make memories, creating a place to do life, to grow, and eventually what we see consistently is these communities end up being places where people launch their lives into owning homes in communities. So providing and aligning with Pearland in terms of the quality of the project and the community, but also integrating into the quality of life as a Pearland resident. These add to that. With top-of-the-line interior amenities, the co-working spaces, as we've seen, that continue to be a trend going into coming out of 2020 That's an example there of how our expansive our fitness center is, our co-working centers are. You can go to the next slide, please. As well as our resident lounges. Next slide. And as well as our pools and gathering areas, catering kitchens, and so forth. So, really the idea here is, as Nick mentioned, is we want to provide a quality development in an area that has, in Pearland been slightly underserved, as we've seen a lot of the projects that have been on the other side of 288 and have done really well. However, this area is a area seen as very underserved, as we've seen as well. We'll get into some of the rental comparables. A recently built project that opened in December of last year, just south of this site, which is the Ventura project off Magnolia Parkway, was doing 45 leases a month. And our information we provide is a little bit outdated based on when we submitted it to staff, but they're upwards of 90+% leased and will be that occupied. And so that'll be a record lease up in all of Houston and well beyond past my time in this business, but going to show that this side of 288 is far underserved. But we've talked about the target area as well, and you can go to the next slide. And I think this works.
So as David was mentioning, really the vision here is to provide a mixed-use project that provides local jobs, but also housing for local people who work in the schools, who work in the city, other sorts of jobs that currently are priced out of the market. And what we're hoping to do is provide a complementary commercial development on the piece adjacent to Broadway, really with a pedestrian-friendly connection, so a path that essentially goes along Oak Road and connects into that. And one of our goals is to not compete with the Asian town across the street. As you'll see on the next slide, really we want to do a different sort of product that caters more to services. Well, actually, can we stay on that slide for a sec? Sorry. That caters to services and food, and we'll talk about that. But one of the most important things that we've come to see is there's a lot of talk of mixed use in the city, and people come here and tell you we're going to bring you guys all these commercial developments, and who knows when that actually ever occurs. In fact, many of them never do occur. And so what we're doing here is promising, as we did on Smith Ranch, that prior to the completion of the multifamily development, we will have commenced construction on at least 5,000 square feet of general business. And we expect that phase to continue to grow, but we're making a commitment here today in our PD that this will be a mixed-use project. And as Alan pointed out, we think this is ultimately highly consistent with the comp plan, as well as the Broadway corridor study the PEDC did, really with that urban footprint and a neighborhood commercial center. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, so what we're hoping to do here is to essentially create a walkable amenity for not only the Alliance project, but also the existing multifamily. So there's about 700 units currently on the ground today. So if you look at just, call it 2 people per unit, we're talking about 1,200 to 1,400 people just walking distance to this property today. You add on Alliance's project, you're talking about 2,000 people potentially. And so we think this could be a great site for coffee, for restaurants, sorts of uses that the city currently may not have the way that, the project with the Paris Begin, others have done so well. We would like to emulate that here as well. And that's why we want to work on having, outdoor uses, rear-facing patios, bike parking, and, a landscaped open space kind of along the way with the corridor overlay district currently lays out. And the last point I'll make is, one of the things we hope to do with this project is to kind of improve the character of the whole area, right? So there's a lot of existing multifamily there. We think by bringing this project there, the curb appeal will go up, and the neighbors are going to be forced to keep up with their properties better in order to stay competitive in the market. So we really think this project is going to be a catalyst not only for helping what's already there, but also allowing our neighbors to our east that are currently undeveloped to also develop over time. I'll turn it back to David.
So a little bit about the project itself. We have 2 buildings in this urban footprint type 4-story. In our business, we call them guard density, a little bit of a garden style, but higher density. So we're going above that 3 stories, not quite 5 stories, but in the middle there with surface parking elevators serve, so interior climate controlled corridors, where you won't see any doors that enter into any units and so forth, with a max of 315 units. This proposal is 307. We added some, as we do know that there's some conversations to still be had by way of the site plan. Please, next slide. And talking a little bit about the site plan and really what makes this property, not only for the residents and its benefit, but for the beautification of the project for Pearland as well, in terms of what we're offering and the curb appeal. This kind of is an overview. In terms of amenities, it'll be top of the line relative to what's currently available in Pearland, and in line with what you would see anywhere across the whole Houston MSA. Next slide. So going a little bit further in detail, one thing that was brought up was our proximity to the nearest residential, and that is listed here. We do also have setbacks, which we're in line with, if not exceeding in many cases with what MF calls out for. But we wanted to just provide these in specific detail to allow for the city to know how this site would most efficiently operate with these setbacks, and being able to achieve the unit count and just the efficient layout of this site. Next slide, please. This is a snippet actually from the city's Chapter 2 zoning regulations, Figure 2.1, to just give the city a graphic there by way of the height restriction. 307 units, 75 of those will be 2 bedrooms, no 3 bedrooms on the property. The target market here is going to be the young, call it 25 to maybe high 30s worker that, I think for the most part, and what we're seeing demographically is individuals, it's getting harder and harder to own a home, especially in the most desirable submarkets in and around the Houston area. Number one is Pearland, and it's why individuals have maybe seen the likelihood of folks having to move to another city outside of Pearland who work here in Pearland, maybe Pasadena, maybe other maybe more affordable markets. And I think that providing this more urban footprint allows us to achieve the site efficiencies and economic efficiencies to provide housing to meet that demand, which we've seen that just south on Magnolia Parkway, but in also various other locations around the city, however, at much higher price points, and which we'll get into. But on the other side of 288, if you're working in and around Pearland and you want a new product, you're looking at a average rent check of about $1,800 to $1,900, whereas we can achieve a much better price point with what we've provided here, all 100% market rate. Alliance, we do zero subsidized housing in Houston. We haven't done it, and which we also think will translate into a very, very low burden on the school district, which we have met with them as well, and think that this would probably max out at about 50 school-age kids at full occupancy. Next slide, please. So in this courtyard, a various amount of amenities. We'll have covered outdoor amenities, what we call our outdoor living, various different spaces for that, as well as the interior. So I know it's hard to read, but a very inviting and community building type of atmosphere. You can go to the next slide as well, with a resort style pool and kind of the key mark location for the property, with outdoor grilling, seating areas as well, and gaming that we will provide at a very high quality. Roughly about 7,000 square feet of our lounge space, leasing offices as well, which you see over in that kind of northwest quadrant of the building. Next slide.
Just jump in here. So we've kind of covered this a little bit before, but several deviations that are required because basically the code is set up for garden style apartments. So in order to do an urban style apartment, here you end up with deviations in terms of densities and height and amount of open space. And so in a typical garden style apartment, you might have playgrounds and things like that. Here a lot of the amenity space ends up being internal, so it doesn't necessarily get counted as open space. And so, as we've mentioned, this is a work in progress. We're here to get your feedback, obviously, but just as a general rule, in order to achieve these kind of products, these are the deviations that need to happen. So, I'll flip back to David.
The parking provided here, we gave an example of several of our projects across the Houston MSA and how much we are going above and beyond what we've typically provided for a 4-story surface park elevator served project like this. In addition, just noting there that the overall parking provided is comparable with, in some cases exceeds the standards that have been recently improved within the city. But the 1.5 spaces for 1 bedroom, 2 spaces for 2-bedroom units get you to the overall 1.62 parking ratio, which you see there on the third column from the far right, and how that compares with the 4-star, very, very similar style executions, and we're much higher than that. So we won't have any issues, speaking from our experience, and in 25 years of Houston development, this will be in the probably top 3 or 4% in terms of parking ratio provided in a suburban community, which we're usually in that 1.3 to 1.4 range overall, and have had 0 issues with that from a management standpoint. This is another consideration with just providing where we think vehicles are going to be going, and we did want the city to know that. We took a look into that, and then the full TIA will be completed prior to the development. We talked a little bit about the demand for multifamily and what's going on specifically in this area. The city's property values as well, with the $49 million project, over $300,000 in terms of tax revenue. But the idea here is that the highest and best use we've seen in terms of the study and the experience with the Motometti family over the long term, I think is the highest value for all parties involved. Here's an idea of who we find are some of the most common types of renters at this type of community. We'll see as the lion's share of the types of jobs from the residents living here at this property. Mentioned a little bit about the age distribution and what we're expecting from who's going to be living here, school age children and so forth. One thing that I think gets brought up is where are these individuals working, and we do understand that the Med Center is definitely attracts a lot of individuals living in South Houston to commute to work, but the greater Pearland area has grown so much that we think, and we are seeing based on what we're experiencing out in our Fulshire properties that we have that are stabilized, and properties in Southwest Houston and South Houston in our portfolio, that individuals are not traveling as much as they used to be into the infill. They are, but what we're seeing is there's a larger percentage of individuals working in and around these large cities. So I think a lot of the folks working that we brought up in that type of worker will be serving the greater Pearland area, in upwards of about 55% are working within that 5-mile radius. A little look at the rental and occupancy comparables in terms of the Class A comparables in a submarket or a competitive market area. This will be one of the best, and and I'll tell you, it's improved since June, since we first submitted this. As you can see, Delta Pearland is much higher than 65%, upwards of 90+% now as we speak. And we think that we're in a very interesting time, I think, macroeconomically, but specifically micro, because Houston is averaging about 18,000 units delivered in the greater 9-county MSA per year. We're expected to deliver in the greater Houston MSA probably about 10,000 this year, right? So almost half. Next year is expected to be about 6,000 units. What that translates to year in and year out when you have a low supply environment in the Houston area is an increase in rental rates. And it gets even harder and harder to afford to live and to work in and around where you live. And so we think that it is a great time in the market to provide, specifically here in Pearland, that and meet that demand with already a weighted average 95% occupancy amongst the Class A comparables. We mentioned the tax and value revenues. Just a little bit of a breakdown of those Class A properties in and around Pearland to see and compare to. And then, Alan, I think this was your...
I don't know if you can see there, that bottom line was $49 million is the estimated value just for the multifamily component. Yeah, you can go ahead. And then, so just using current tax rates, that's a little over $300,000, to the city, not counting the commercial portion, general business, over $500,000 to PISD, plus the state funding that they get on top of that. In addition, if you look at some typical metrics for sales tax generation for that initial 5,000 square feet, on the frontage, that's about $26,000 per year in sales tax combined, city and EDC. Total build out there, could support as much as 45,000 square feet. We're not saying that's going to happen tomorrow, but if it did, that'd be about $236,000 a year just in sales tax. And then on top of that, just the residents living there are going to be shopping and buying things in Pearland. And there's a formula that we use a lot when we do impact analyses that shows, how much, typically gets spent locally by residents. And so for the 300 units there in this complex, you could expect about $62,000 to be spent locally, in Pearland. So one more, and then I think we'll wrap up. And so I won't reiterate all of the things that are on this, but just as a general rule, we certainly understand you get hit with a lot of multifamily requests, and so how do we distinguish ourselves, and why is this one important? But anytime you look at a piece of property, it needs to be a win-win situation. It certainly needs to be economically viable, but it also needs to provide a product that's valuable to the community. And so we think, with Alliance Residential and the type of product that they bring, that's the sort of housing that's going to support the workforce that Pearland values, the local workforce. And then when you couple that with what the Medi family brings and being able to do the general business in the front and the complementary uses, we think that can really kind of create those vibrant third spaces, as they call them, and gathering spaces that the city's also looking for. So combining all of that with, again, the thinking that we meet the target analysis or the target area catalyst that y'all are looking for, the architecture, and the commitments on the architecture. When, like I said, we know this is a work in progress. We're looking for your feedback. If this concept is favorable, we're confident we can work out any details as we go forward. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Same drill as the last one. Kind of give a quick kind of yes, no, so we can get a quick judge and feel on the product. Obviously, we can get into more questions later. So, Mr. Chairman, we'll start with you guys.
Tommy, you want to kick it off?
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. I have no questions right now. I'm curious to see what everyone else is thinking.
I actually like the product. I think it looks really good. I like the amenities. I like the privacy of the interior courtyard for residents. I think that we see a lot of complaints from when you take a product like this and you put it next to a residential neighborhood, but I don't even see, I think it's surrounded by apartments already. So I don't even know what the issue would be with surrounding neighborhoods. I think it's the right product for the location. And I love the walkable retail or maybe coffee shop node that you want to put in the front. That makes a lot of sense. I just think it looks really good, and I'm in favor of it.
Also for me, the location is prime for multifamily. If you had asked me before I knew that this was coming, give me 5 sites in Pearland that multifamily makes sense, this would have been in the top 5, if not the top 3. I also appreciate very much that the nearest neighbor is 800 plus feet away. That seems to be where most of the complaints come from with multifamily, overlooking the fence, privacy, et cetera, and traffic is always a secondary. My understanding is there's going to be a traffic light there in short order with the Asian Town Center coming in, so that should help alleviate some of the traffic concerns, if there were any. As for the phasing, many times I've asked for phasing in multifamily projects. That includes the Ivy District. That included the one on McHard Road that was committed to, and then I didn't come back to Planning and Zoning. When they came back the last time, I wasn't with Planning and Zoning, and they snuck it in without the phasing that I'd asked for when they came the first 5 times. In this case, I have to say, I honestly don't care about the phasing. It's my personal opinion. I'm one of 7 votes here, only on P&Z, not at the council level. I get that, but for me, GB on Broadway is going to happen once it has the correct ownership. I understand there was some ownership issues, and they've solved that problem. So congrats to them. But this is it's a parcel that's shaped like this, rectangular with the frontage road. This back half, you're never going to get that to be GB. So, unless you put a shopping center there, and there's already a shopping center right down the street. There's another one down the street. It's not going to happen. So, this use makes sense for this parcel if you're willing to accept multifamily, and I know that's a big if for some of you. And the last thing, density. I understand it's 36 plus per acre, a net usable acre. My opinion, and my opinion alone here, I don't care if it's 50 units per acre. As long as the product looks nice, it's 4 stories, it's well built, it's well designed, has curb appeal. It's the urban look that we all have asked for. I know you had a fancy name with the garden. I'd strike that and wouldn't say that ever again in the city limits. But I do appreciate the look, and I think that when we say urban, that's what we mean. 4 stories without that hip roof showing. That to me says garden style on it. But I did question what I think in the drawings, the renditions I saw this over the weekend, they were all 4 sides. Today I'm seeing the open side, like the letter C. It is right there. It's the same one. Okay, I missed it. I thought they were both 4-sided. Was wondering why you went to that instead of maximizing the site and having more units.
That's a great question. So I think that there's a couple reasons, but one, if we close that in, it'd be hard to tell you right now, maybe, or to imagine it as I tell you. But if I did close that in, that would create an extremely small courtyard in that pool courtyard. Too small, really, for comfort. You'd like to have more space in there, to little breathing room in that pool courtyard. And 300 to 310 units is a sweet spot for not only construction, but for operations, operational efficiency.
Great presentation. I'm happy to hear that there's no subsidized rent. I'm happy that you guys will have access to Oak Road. And I think it's definitely a good use of the land. So I'm in favor.
For me, the best part tonight was the economic seminar on multifamily residential and how it's going to boost our economy. I don't know, I think it's a fine product. I feel like 30 years ago, the National Multifamily Association put out a box and said, add the color you want around it. Add a couple, add some parking, maybe this year we're doing pools, next year we're doing beer gardens, I don't know. It's the same product we get everywhere. If you look at 90% or more of these sort of developments in our area and other urban areas, it's the same box. It's nice. It'll make a nice home, it'll be affordable, it'll add value, it'll support our local businesses, but it's not gonna save Pearland from economic ruin or boost our economy to a level where we never have to worry again. But it'll be a nice addition to what we have out there.
The only thing that I ask is, I don't really understand that much about as far as architecture and stuff like that, but I just wouldn't like to see any balconies facing Broadway that are visible from Broadway. It got brought up in one of our previous meetings about towels being hung on the balconies and stuff. And that's just not what we want in Pearland. I think it's a good product for that area. And I think, and a lot of times we do have a lot of people concerned about it from the residential side, but this right here, there should be no reason whatsoever that they wouldn't take this and willingly open it with open arms. I mean, I like the idea of having the retail node down at the, on the base and stuff out on Broadway. I think it's a good product, and I'll be behind it. That's it, Mayor. You turn it over to you.
Good deal. We'll turn it over to council for their thoughts. We'll start with Mr. Patel and work the other way this time.
Sure, Mayor, I appreciate that. So I like the product, but I don't like the idea of any more apartments here. And I'll tell you why. Back in July, I asked the police chief to pull some data for me. And let me share that data with you. I think City Council received the same data. If you know this address, 2920 Oak Drive, Lakeside, do you know how many calls it had in 12-month span? Just from the police side. It had 177, not including the fire, which was 57. Right? That's down the street from you, I'm assuming? Across the street from you guys. So I understand that this land is not probably going to be developed into something. Earlier, we saw Sullivan Brothers come here. That same site that they're looking at, I think got turned down like twice. And they finally came up with the right product of ownership. And I understand that there may be challenges, but I would prefer you guys, and I guess you might not be in this boat with the Lions, but to find a developer that will actually have some ownership. Because you guys keep talking about, earlier somebody said, we're gonna have local people live here, but then you guys say, hey, they're gonna be teachers. At the same time, they can't afford our town. So you can't have it both ways. It's a very high demand town that everybody wants to get here, especially what happened in Magnolia. They want to expand, and this council has agreed to go ahead and give them, on the opposite side, to allow them to build 300 more units. This is another 300 units. You guys are putting up in the Hughes Ranch Road, I believe, another 300 units. Everybody wants to continuously build apartments in our community. There's no ownership. There's no school teachers that can afford it. There's nothing in here that tells me, hey, these guys are going to be vested in my community. They're coming in and they're moving out. And I apologize, but just because you're dangling a carrot of the commercial side with 5,000 square feet, that will get developed. I agree with Henry. It will eventually get developed when 518 gets brought in. But this tract, I would prefer it to be ownership, smaller lots. I love what Sullivan Brothers did today. And if you run fast enough, you might be able to catch them. But I do not want any more apartments in our community. Sorry, go ahead.
The Lakeside Point, just to clarify, I think it's a subsidized property, right? So what Alliance is doing is a market rate development. So I don't think the quality of tenants will be anything similar to what Lakeside has. That's a section, or I don't know if it's Section 8, but it's a low-income property, and this is not going to be the same.
I agree. But do you think it's going to spill over on your property where something will happen and our fire and police department will get called out there?
I think whatever happens there would happen whether it's single-family housing or it's multifamily. That's the problem with that development. We have no control over it, unfortunately.
100% agree with that, right? But to continue to add to that fire of just a bunch of apartments, it doesn't help, right? For me, the value is a residence that actually has some kind of roots in my community. That's where I'm from, right? That's what I want.
Okay.
I don't want people coming in for 12 months or 18 months and moving on.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Fernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, gentlemen, thank you all for the presentation. Looking at the Alliance property, do I like it? Yes. Do I like the look of it? Yes. Do I think it's a little bit more upscale? Yes. I'm having a difficult time, just as much as I've heard from the commissioners, and I do believe what else could go there. If there's an apartment complex on one side, what could go on the other side? I'm more concerned of the traffic congestion in that area, adding an additional 600 and something vehicles coming from that complex off of Oak Road. I think one of the commissioners mentioned, I think Henry, you mentioned that there may be a traffic signal coming in to that area because of the Asian Town shopping center, which is a good thing. This may be a staff question, but I've seen buses with the Pearland Independent School District stopping right there at the intersection of 518 and Oak Road to pick up kids and drop off kids. If we were to add another, apartment complex with 300 and something homes, I'm concerned about how many more kids would be picked up and dropped off right there, the congestion that those buses face on 518. These are just things that jump out at me when I read this that concerns me. You mentioned targeting the younger crowd, 25 to 35, and bringing that many more people into our school district. So just a little concerned on the whole traffic congestion side. That's, for me, I think that the property looks nice. I'm just a little bit more concerned on the congestion side with the Asian, shopping center coming in on the other side, with the existing 300 and something apartment units that exist in that property across the street. Can that area handle another 600 and something vehicles?
Right. Just quick response to that. Again, I know that the traffic signal has been sort of a hot potato there, but we were told a couple of weeks ago by the engineering staff that there would be a signal there at Oak once the 518 project goes through. So again, not tomorrow, but at some point there would be a signal there. And then again, the full TIA would get done. So if there were turn lanes required or things like that, that would be handled. We also checked with the complex next door, and the correct pickup location for the kids is actually not on Broadway. So the school bus stop is supposed to be on Oak or internal. So if you've seen buses stopping there on Broadway, that's contrary to what the folks next door are telling us is supposed to happen.
Yeah, and this may be a staff question. I've seen it with my own eyes. I don't know if that's not supposed to happen, but if we can just double check that. The last question I have regarding the commercial up front. Is that immediate going to be built at the time that an apartment complex is being built, or is that a later date?
No, so prior to the delivery of the multifamily, we'll start construction on the general business. So it'll be guaranteed to essentially be done within 12 months of the multifamily being delivered.
And I saw a picture of it. It wasn't a shopping center. It was more designed as independent buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think our intent is to have it be an open space environment where you have rear-facing uses. So you have, storefronts on the Broadway side, and then, restaurants and others on the rear side facing the apartment complex. So it's supposed to be more of an urban look, what you would see in the Heights or other parts of town.
Okay, thank you. To sum it up, I'm a little reserved just because I'd like to have some additional information from the staff and just so that I can have a better understanding with the traffic. But that's kind of where I stand right now. Thank y'all.
Ms. Cade?
I do think it looks okay. I wish it wasn't multifamily. I guess that's my only feedback. All the amenities looked great. I'm torn. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Baum. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few different comments. We're all asked a lot about multifamily in Pearland. I'll echo what a lot of E&Z said. This is probably one of the few places that just hands down makes sense to put multifamily. That's what's there. That on the other side of Oak Road, down at the end, it makes sense. I appreciate the forward thinking about putting in the development, the commercial development, at least starting it. That was my number one question when I read the proposal is I don't want another, yes, we're going to do this and this, and we never do that. So I appreciate it. From a concept, I like where you're coming from. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Century Square in College Station. I think that would be a great fit for what you're looking at for that area. It's that walkable environment that creates some green space for people to congregate, as well as restaurants, retail. I think that would be a great thing to look into. I feel like it would fit really well conceptually up there in the front. I believe I heard you guys say from Alliance that y'all don't plan to operate it, you plan to build it and sell it, or did I hear that wrong?
So our model as a structure as a company is we're not a long-term holder, but we have that mentality as a long-term holder. And the reason why we're able to have so much success as the number one builder or top 5 nationally consistently is because we have that reputation. As we don't build any quality less than what we would if we were holding it long-term. And we have in-house asset management as well to make sure in in-house construction that we're in control of that, of the quality of the development and operation.
Okay, thank you. So the only thing that gives me consternation about it is that it's 4 stories, and the look of it is completely different from everything else that's over there. I think the other side of that coin is when you come down Oak Road, all of the landscaping down Oak Road pretty much hides Tranquility Lakes. And as long as you guys are maintaining, which it does look like you are maintaining a good amount of landscaping, it will help with that as well. So that's really my only, like I said, consternation is the only word I can come up with. I'm not opposed to it being there. It just looks very different than everything else, and it would be the only 4-story product in that area. The last comment that I have, as far as that's along those lines, in your presentation of some of your other products that you guys have built, the elevations for, I believe it was called Jordan Ranch. I thought that was a very nice look that would fit well in that area with what is already there. So maybe some consideration on the elevations. The elevations are very similar to what's on Magnolia, but there's nothing else there. So they're kind of setting the tone. I feel like on Oak Road, the tone is already set a little bit. I like the walkable amenities. I like that you've got the air-conditioned interior corridors. I did have a question for staff. The plan shows a wood fence planned along the backside of the property up against the GB. Do we have does the UDC stipulate what kind of fence that needs to be, since it would be butting up to general business? Wood fence is fine?
Wood fence would be fine. We can also add enhanced standards if masonry is desired by the council and P&Z in their PD document.
Okay. With it butting up to general business, I think that might be a long-term consideration. You don't know what's going to get built there. And then for the benefit of the residents that are living there, maybe that wood fence wouldn't be the best thing to go.
Can I
Yes.
comment on that? So, I mean, we did look at that, and, you know, since that property to the east is vacant where the wood fence would be, you know, we don't know what it is going to be. So for us, it didn't make sense to invest a lot of money in some big masonry fence when the use that comes in next door might be perfectly compatible and you don't need it. So the way we would look at it is, you know, the code doesn't require an upgraded fence, and when that property next door develops, depending on what its use is, they would need to put in whatever kind of buffering makes sense if we're there before. That's how we would look at it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I appreciate that. And then the last comment that I had on the parking deviations that you mentioned, showing the various different products that you have built in the area, and that the parking deviations, those were all, from what I could tell, were all Houston developments. Is that correct?
Greater Houston, there are some in Houston, some in Harris County, so unincorporated Harris County and Montgomery County.
The only thing I would say to that is I think it's been pretty well put out that Pearland doesn't want to become Houston, so we don't want to start building a lot of things that just brings Houston into Pearland. So I would be a little cautious on using Houston as your examples, because we want to be Pearland, right? So that's why we have certain standards and certain deviations. There's a lot of deviations in here. The open space is one that I think is very important to our community to maintain the feel of Pearland. So.
I could comment on the parking. Again, the reason I suggested actually that they put that slide in there, just so that you could see from their other products, they actually have a lower parking ratio and they've been successful. But if you applied the parking ratio that was approved for the Delta, you'd actually get fewer parking spaces than what we're proposing here. And so again, we'll continue to work with staff. So if you know, we're proposing less than what the city code requires, we're proposing more than what was approved for Delta. So if there's some room in there to find a solution, we're happy to do that.
I think that's fair, and overall, I think open space is probably more important than parking spaces.
Good deal. Ms. Chavaria?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for the presentation. I'm in favor of ownership versus apartments, so I'm a no.
Okay. Mr. Carbone?
I think it's a decent product. If we're going to have multifamily, this location is not the worst. So I can probably get there. Don't know about anybody else up here. Yeah, I'm not a hard no.
All right. I was going to ask you a question, Mr. Carbone. Was the driving range on this property, or was it next door?
It was next door.
That's what I thought. I couldn't.
Although some of my balls might have made it to this parcel.
I was going to say somewhere underneath all those trees is a ton of golf balls. I guarantee you. Somebody's going to get in there clearing and grubbing and go, where did all these come from?
We'll bring him back to give him to Tony.
Yeah, forever and ever and ever there was a driving range right there. I'm just going to kind of wrap up. Again, I think the product itself is closer in line to what we're looking for as a look and feel for an apartment project. Same thing, staff. It kind of goes to the UDC, and as we move forward with the UDC, probably a category of multifamily or urban type multifamily with some of the changes that we're seeing in some of these projects. Again, we don't have open multifamily land, so with that, it has to come in and be this iterative process, which I'm in favor of that as well. But I think having a standard to kind of launch from versus the garden style apartments, and then knowing that everything is going to change, would probably be a good thing for us to look at long term. I don't know if you've got good feedback, between the council and the planning and zoning. I think in some respects, people are liking the product. I think having to get over the fact of additional multifamily. This is a pretty dense area, lots of multifamily there, so I'll echo, if you're going to have a spot for multifamily, this is probably it because of what's around it. I don't know that you get there with a single family, even a high dense project. I think it defeats the purpose of affordability. I ran some numbers. A $400,000 home, is going to require $4,500 a month ish, somewhere in there. And that's not what you're pushing as far as rent's concerned. I do like the mix that you brought in here. It certainly keeps it where you're not going to have a ton of kids, and the 50 is not a lot when you spread it over 4 or 5 schools. It doesn't make it a burden on the school district. I did see the slide. You've had comments with them. They don't view it as necessarily a burden, or they're not at capacity with the schools that you'd be looking at. I think it'd be hard pressed for them to write we endorse it, but the fact that it's not adding capacity or capacity burdens is there. So, but again, I don't know if you got good feedback tonight. I think you have that. You have it on tape as well, so you can go back and kind of listen to these comments. Vance, we'll kick it to you guys for any follow-up or wrap-up comments.
No, similar. If they end up wanting to move forward, the only thing I would add is on that GB, maybe the southeast corner of that, leaving like a punch out for an access for fire if y'all decide to do that. And just, I know the emergency service guys would really appreciate having that there, even if it's gated. But no,
You're saying to access into the multifamily?
Yeah. And again, that's pretty in the weeds, but no, if we'll let y'all huddle up after this, and glad to work on it if y'all decide to move forward.
All right, good deal. Members of the commission, any follow-up, Mr. Chairman? Okay, good deal. Wanted to come back around. All right, with that, we're going to conclude this set of workshops at 6:07.